Welcome back to the Dynasty Nerds podcast. I am your host, Garrett Price, with my main man, Andrew. Andrew, how you doing?
Doing good today, man. Got to see my Vikings get a W over there in London, so can't complain today.
That's right, over my Browns, over the Dylan Gabriel led Browns. It was actually a game, so I wasn't upset. It was a solid game, back and forth. You guys had to make some magic happen late with Jordan Addison, and look, honestly, for me, could Dylan Gabriel be the guy? Maybe. Could Shador Sanders be the guy? Maybe. But realistically, I'm just looking for like good moments in the season because I think realistically our quarterback is in the 2026 class. So
Might be.
we'll see.
And look, Wentz may be injured, so the haters may not like it, but J.J. McCarthy might be back into the lineup right after the bye week.
There we go. Who do you guys have in your first few games back? Is it at least like a softer landing for him?
No.
No.
No,
I was gonna say
I
the
think
Browns defense is tough, so maybe that was like, hey, it'd be nice to like give him a softer landing.
our
No
first
dice.
game back is how's Philly sound for the first one back?
Oof, that's not ideal. Not ideal. All right, well, today we have an episode. I'm excited about it. We had to coordinate some things, make sure we were all on the same page for this. But basically, the concept of this video here is we have a first round pick in 2026. Maybe it's early, maybe it's mid, maybe it's late. We'll talk about all those different scenarios. What players would we be willing to give? Or sorry, what
You
players
did it
would we
again.
be trying
You
to
did
get?
it again, Garrett.
I know, I did
What
it. I
what players would we be willing
wanna
to
get.
buy for these
Yes,
picks?
with our first round pick.
Yeah,
So
you did it
uh,
again.
I know. I really was trying to buy the first, and we clarified it is not buying the first. We're buying the player, and we're selling the first. So let's get into it. Talk about what guys we're kind of interested in, kind of our thought process. Now, real quick, we wanted to use kind of a common baseline. We could have obviously gone with our Dynasty Nerds rankings. We trust them a lot, the ADP, all that kind of stuff. But sometimes we hear, well, you guys are biased to your own stuff, which we are because we think it's great. But we want to make sure that we're being as neutral as possible. So we use KTC. We know those are kind of like the community vibes as to what players are worth and not. So we looked at where is the early first in 26? Where's the mid first in 26? Where's the late first in 26? And where are players that are right around that value? Maybe a few spots ahead, maybe a few spots behind, but right around that value. So that way we're making sure that these are trades that could realistically happen. They're not just things that we're saying like out of thin air. These are trades that could realistically happen in your league. And look, just because a trade is fair on paper does not mean it's going to get done. Somebody could offer me a fair trade for Bijan Robinson, but I'm a contender. I have zero desire to give Bijan Robinson up. So just because a trade is fair doesn't mean it will happen, but we tried our best to get realistic trade opportunities for your league. So Andrew, give us your first player that you're trying to get with one of those draft picks. You can pick whichever one you want.
Okay, I have freedom. I think I'm just going to start at the top here with the early first round pick. Now, we've talked a little bit about this 2026 draft class, and we've talked about how it may be a little bit better than we had thought as we've got into the scouting and things like that, but it still does feel like it lacks the high-end caliber talent at the top, and the depth does get a little bit shallow as you get into that middle of the second round, at least for me today. So when I'm looking at, using my first round rookie pick, I want a player that I think is a difference maker for my fantasy football team. I don't want a player that I'm like, I'll just take the 102 in a class that lacks the top end talent. That's not what I want to do with my rookie pick. So I'm sending that 101, 102, 103, whatever it may be. And depending on which one of those it may be, you may be able to get a little bit extra thrown in on top. Maybe you have to give a little. But the name's Garrett Wilson. I'm just dropping Garrett Wilson for the New York Jets as the first name. I think he's a player that if I'm selling the rookie pick, I obviously want to make sure that I'm getting a player that I think can still be a contributor for me 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road. And I have no worries or concerns about Garrett Wilson still being a contributor for me in a couple of seasons. He's 25 years old. Right now, he's the wide receiver 14 over on Keep Trade Cut, averaging 19 fantasy points per game this year with Justin Fields. I'm looking at the rest of the season schedule for him as well. Garrett Wilson and the New York Jets have the ninth easiest rest of season schedule for wide receivers. So if you're looking for a player that you can buy, has longevity at the position, still has that difference making potential that we've seen with that, 19 fantasy points per game, and has a pretty good rest of season schedule to help you potentially win a championship here this year because you're selling that first round pick, I would absolutely be doing it for Garrett Wilson. I think he's a fantastic buy. And I don't really have, I had a little bit of a pause where I was like, do I want to buy Garrett Wilson because what is life going to look like post Justin Fields? I don't know if it matters. We've seen Garrett Wilson be good with Zach Wilson. We've seen him be good with Mike White. We've seen him be good with Justin Fields. I don't think it matters.
And I think that's the thing with Garrett Wilson is, can it really get much worse? Like, I don't know that it can. I think it could either stay the same or get better. I don't think it's going to get significantly worse for not Justin Fields, for Garrett Wilson. And I'm totally fine with that. And when I was thinking about the early first, I tried to think about it in two camps. One where this is my own pick. If it's my own pick, I am in the midst of rebuild more likely, or at least I should be if I'm picking that early. And would I rather on my rebuild team have a cornerstone piece like a Garrett Wilson? Yes, he's not 21 anymore, but he's still going to be in his prime when we're expecting him to contribute in 2-3 years. So I have no issues with that at all long term. And I think that's the thing for me overall, where this video went from incredibly difficult to incredibly easy for me. Because when I first thought that I was having to sell a player to get a first round pick, I have a hard time with that, because more often than not, especially in season, I want to have that contributor. I want to have that player that I know what I'm getting out of. The first round picks are such a crapshoot, and especially in this class, you already mentioned it. I have some real concerns at the top there. I do like Tyson. I think he's a good player, but today, would I take Tyson over Garrett Wilson? No, I don't think he's that big of a difference maker at this point. Now we'll see what team he lands with what quarterback and what system, and how he develops and all that. Is it possible? Absolutely. But would I project it today? No. So give me the guy that's already there age-wise. I'm de-risking the pick, and now I'm just getting a solid, steady asset.
Yep, I totally agree. And I try to do the same thing where it's like, if I'm rebuilding, would I be okay selling that 102, 103, 104 for Garrett Wilson? Yes, I would. And if I'm contending and I have somebody else's, first round pick sitting in my pocket, give me the points of Garrett Wilson today.
Absolutely. So let's go to mine here. And I ended up going with Quinshon Judkins. Quinshon Judkins, actually, they're literally back to back right now on KTC as far as the value of an early first and Quinshon Judkins. So I think this is a very, very realistic trade. You're going to have probably half the people that are going to say, I'd rather have the early first. You're going to have half the people say, I'd rather have the Quinshon Judkins asset there. But for me, when I look at it, there's a few things in play here. When I look at my prospect nerd scores, I go back and look. He has, I want to say it was a top 10 all time, and this is my 6th year of doing it. So he was top 10 all time, and I want to say he was even inside the top 8. I want to say he was like my 6th or 7th rated running back. And so it's crazy for a class to have 4 running backs that all crack the top 10 as far as grade goes for me. So that tells me in other years, he's easily the running back 2, if not the running back 1 in a lot of other seasons. So I think talent-wise, score-wise, as a prospect, he was right there. Then he goes to Cleveland, and I get it. I'm a Browns fan. The offense isn't great. But he's averaging nearly 5 yards a carry. He's at 4.8 yards per carry in this offense. And that's with this team having no passing game really to speak of at all this year. If they get an improved passing game, if he stays involved, which he has been involved in the passing game, not to a heavy degree, but he has been catching some passes and things like that, I think that there is a very, very good ceiling for a Quinshon Judkins right now. You're looking at his per game averages. They're all very, very high as far as yards per carry, yards per game. Everything he's doing is good. He's already gotten in the end zone twice. There's just not a lot of going back to risk, there's just not a lot of risk here with Quinshon Judkins. He's inarguably one of the lesser situations in the NFL and performing really well. So I don't see things getting worse. And then when you look at this 26 class, there is a running back that I could maybe possibly see being in that same range, and that's Jeremiah Love. He's the only one that I could see being in that range. And if I'm trading my pick today, I don't know if that – I have a good feeling that it's early, but I don't know if it's 101, 102, 103, 104. Like, you don't know that today. And so even if I'm saying there is a guy that could be in that same range, why risk the could be if I already have the is? So I think that's the thing that I really want to get across in this episode is it's about how you think about these assets. Yes, we all love prospects. I'm a huge prospect guy. My favorite time of year is when I am scouting rookies and then we get to the NFL draft. Like, that's my favorite time of year. The in-season's cool. It is. But that's my favorite time of year. So I get the lottery ticket of, yeah, but what could be? It's better to have the is, it's the old Family Guy, mystery box kind of vibe of like, but it could be a boat, but we're offering you a boat. Like that's the thing. Like, so for me, I'm going to take Quinshon Judkins here and I'm going to feel really good about it.
Yeah, I think he's an interesting one. He was on my list of players I thought for the early first that I would sell that for, but I was the kind of the same idea as you where Jeremiah Love is sitting in this class, and it's like, would you rather Jeremiah Love or would you rather Quinshon Judkins? Because I would view those two players at this point in time somewhat similar. I'm a big fan of Love. I think Love's going to be fantastic at the next level. Obviously, like you said, there's a lot of risk here where we have to figure out the landing spot and the draft capital. And he can still play a game of college football, and God forbid he ever get injured in this season. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things that can happen. The only thing that I would mention is if you're playing, with that pick where you're saying this is a running back, it's either Love or it's Judkins for me. Mm-hmm. The only thing I would say is as a rebuilder, if you hold the pick, you're not scoring points this year. Judkins is going to score points this year, and that's going to help you, maybe increase the value of that pick. But that is the only game theory piece of that argument that I would push against the Judkins move. But if you're a rebuilder and you want to go get a running back like Judkins, I don't blame you. I remember, probably the first week or the second week of the NFL season, you and I, we did a video where we re-ranked the rookies. And we had Judkins at like 8 at that point in time. Judkins hadn't been on the football field. And I remember the people made sure to let us know that we were way too high on Quinshon Judkins. And then you and I, we re-ranked them last week. And we had Quinshon Judkins at 8. Again, he didn't move up, he didn't move down. We'd never pushed him or punished him because of the off the field stuff yet. Yeah. And now we're way too low on Quinshon Judkins. So it's just funny how the market moves and manipulates like that so quickly and so rapidly. But I think there's something to take away from that where, there's opportunities for you to take advantage of news if you think and you're viewing this in a long-term lens like we should be in Dynasty Fantasy Football. So I like the buy. Like I said, he was a player that was on my list. The only pushback I would say is if you're contending or you're rebuilding, it is your own pick, you're rebuilding. I would say you maybe don't want the points on the roster, but any other, reason, or if you're just a big Quinshon Judkins fan, I don't blame you. Go for it. I think it's good value.
Yeah, and the same thing would happen with Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson's getting you points where the pick isn't. And so you do run into that scenario anytime you're training for a player. But the nice part specifically about Quinshon, depending on how your league does it, many Dynasty leagues do have a taxi squad where you can put those players on the first couple of years. And a lot of leagues have different rules on what's eligible and what's not and whatever. But there's a very high likelihood that as a rebuilder, you could just stick him on the taxi squad and then he's not hurting you at all.
Did you know, actually, I agree with you, and I hear that. Sleeper counts taxi squad as part of max points for.
I did know that. I didn't know that until last year when they counted, and I was like, "Oh, that's a
so they counted as part of max points for. So if you're trying to be sneaky, and it's not sneaky, but if you're trying to be like, let me put a couple of these guys because I'm rebuilding that are going to score points on the taxi. It doesn't matter. They still score points for you.
Yep. Still hurts. All right. Let's get to the mid first. The guys that we would be willing to buy for a mid first. So we're looking kind of in the 5 to 8 range pick wise.
Yeah. So for a mid first, I'm kind of thinking that you are a team that is on the fence. You don't know whether or not you're going to be able to push it into the playoffs. and you don't know whether or not maybe you have enough to get there, and you're maybe thinking about, throwing in the towel. This is going to be a player that if you are on that fence and want to make the push into the playoffs, I think it's the right buy. It's going to be Jared Goff, quarterback for the Detroit Lions. Obviously, this is like a super flex buy for you, but I still think that Jared Goff is a player that's very interesting for me in fantasy, and he's kind of a player like Josh Jacobs or James Conner or some of these other guys, Baker Mayfield, where it's like the name doesn't match the production. And I mean that in the trade market of like, you're always getting these guys at discounts for some reason, because for whatever reason it may be, people think those names just aren't as valuable. And I was going to put Josh Jacobs as my buy here, but we've talked about him on a million different episodes. So I decided to give you another name. I think Jared Goff, though, he's a player that I really like. Look, he's a guy that I'm not really worried about the offense anymore. This was a offense that I think after the first or second week, you and I were kind of talking about the Detroit Lions offense, and I was like, I don't know. It hasn't looked good. Yeah. Just kidding. Just kidding. They look so good. They look nothing has changed really since Ben Johnson has left, I think, other than the week one game. But right now he's ranked as KTC's QB 16. He's 31 years old, so he's going to be a little bit of an older guy, but at the quarterback position, I'm not worried about, the age of 31. He can still give me another 3-4 years as the Lions quarterback and still give me, these producing numbers. Averaging 18.5 fantasy points per game, and the rest of season schedule for him is the 12th easiest amongst quarterbacks. So, not elite schedule rest of the way, but a pretty solid schedule for him the rest of the way as well. And to end the year, I think that's the biggest part of why I would buy him if I think I can make this push and make this contending season happen for my fantasy football team, is he should have an opportunity to be in a lot of shootout games at the end of the season. He has 5 matchups, the last 2 of your fantasy football regular season and the 3 matchups in the fantasy playoffs that are going to be against the Packers, probably a shootout, the Cowboys, a shootout, the Rams, probably a shootout, and then he has the Steelers and the Vikings in the semifinals and the finals that both could also be shootouts as well. Maybe the Steelers not so much, but their defense has been giving up a ton of fantasy points to quarterbacks. But the Vikings could be another shootout in division game as well. So I think there's tons of matchups to like at the back end of the year. Obviously, the weapons that he has are incredible. We don't really even need to talk too much about him. But Jared Goff, for me, a contender buy, maybe a little bit more than anything else. You're not buying him in a rebuild, but I would be sending that mid-first round pick for him all day long if I want to try and win a championship this year.
And I do want to make sure I clarify, this is in super flex leagues. So if you're playing in a 1 QB league, do not give your first round pick up for a quarterback unless we're talking about like Josh Allen, because we're not trying to do that. But yeah, I absolutely love that pick. And for years, honestly, I've been going after guys like Jared Goff. Kirk Cousins was on that list for a long time for me. Another guy that we'll get to in a little bit is on that list for me. I don't want to give it away yet, but I have a guy similar on the list as well that I'm going to get to. So yeah, I love getting these guys that are just not as exciting, not as big of a deal, especially maybe they don't have quite the rushing upside that gets people like really, really juiced. But year in, year out, they produce. They get it done. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to stress about it. You don't have to wonder. They just make it happen. So I love Jared Goff in this situation. I do think that, right now they're actually slightly better in a points per game basis than what they were last year, which is absurd. It just makes absolutely no sense that they're able to do this. Lose an all-pro center, lose your mastermind offensive coordinator. Yeah, we're just going to be just as good, if not better. Makes no sense, but absolutely love this. I think it's a great call.
Perfect quarterback 2 in that super flex format. That's going to give you those big QB1 spike weeks.
Absolutely.
So, who do you got for your mid-second round pick, or your mid-first round pick, not a second round pick?
Yeah, not a second round pick. Mid-first round pick. I'm going with Jaxson Dart here. And this is going to be coming from a little bit of the opposite angle. Not that you can't buy him as a contender, because I think his fantasy points are still going to be solid. He's averaging about 18.5 points per game. So he's averaging very, very solid games. But this is much more of a, hey, I'm middle of the road. I don't know if this is my year. This is going to kind of help prepare you for next year. And once again, I know that there's going to be people that are draft guys that are like, well, why not just wait till next year's draft? There's a lot of guys in next year's draft. And that is true. There are a lot of guys in next year's draft that could be in the equation somewhere between pick 5 and pick 8. Absolutely possible. But I get that it's only 2 games. But I've seen enough through 2 games to show me, A, this guy is an athlete. Like, this guy is what we kind of saw on tape as far as willing to tuck it and run, willing to kind of get those, tough yardage. Like, he's willing to do all of those things. So I'm very encouraged by that. And look, maybe vibes is the wrong word to use. And when I'm trying to like give a good like analytical profile of a player, but like the vibes are right. The vibes are right now in New York. Yes, it was a weird game. And ultimately, yeah, he had that bad fumble and things like that. But look, these are rookies. They're going to have mistakes happen. They're going to recover from them. But right now, I've seen enough that I would rather not risk it on another quarterback. And I'd rather just take the guy that I've at least seen a little bit from, and I understand what he could be. And remember, this guy's doing it with basically no receivers. There's nobody to catch the ball right now. You excited about Wan'Dale Robinson? Excited about Darius Slayton? Like, no, like we're here for Malik Neighbors. So he's going to get him back next year. So I think he'll be fine to help you contribute this year. I would feel totally comfortable with him as my quarterback 2 for 2025. But I think just as good, if not better, days are ahead in 2026. So I'm in on Jaxson Dart.
I love to hear it because the first video that I ever made for Dynasty Nerds was players that I am rostering in the 2025 draft class that are the most rostered amongst my rosters. And Jaxson Dart was my number 1 most rostered player. So I definitely love it. It's just, look, the upside that he brings in the rushing game, the ability for like schemed, designed runs that they're doing with him, where it's direct snap and then take it and go. Like, that is stuff that you love to see as a fantasy football player, because those just equal more and more fantasy football points down the road. And I think even that game that, you're talking about, there's a little bit of like rookie mistakes that were happening in this game. Mm-hmm. There's also a lot of things that happened in that game that were not Jaxson Dart's fault. He had a big play to Darius Slayton that hit him in the chest that was dropped. He had a couple of passes to Wan'Dale Robinson that were dropped that could have been critical downs for this team. So I think that's a player where, like you said, you're not really excited about the wide receiver weapons that he has today. You want Malik Neighbors to be there, and it's going to be another year until Malik Neighbors is there and probably back in the lineup going with Dart. But I think this is a player that, like you said, you've seen enough traits. I've seen these physical tools that he has that are going to translate to fantasy football points, and I like what I've seen from Jaxson Dart. So I agree with you. I'm kind of glad that we went 2 different directions. One that was like, I'm on the fence and I want to push to play this year, and I'm on the fence and I want to play for next year maybe, or get a little bit of insurance. I like that because that gives people, especially, the fact that both of them are quarterbacks, pick your poison. Whichever way you're going on that fence, we got an option for you either way.
Hey, Nerd Herd, want to tell you about a show that we've been doing live on YouTube where we go over your teams and we talk about how to fix your broken roster. It's called Roster Rescue. We do it live every single Monday at noon Eastern time. And if you want to get a part of that, just head to our Dynasty Nerds homepage, go under the store tab, and you'll find Roster Rescue right there. Perfect opportunity to get your rosters in shape before the season or even in the middle of the season to make sure that you can win a championship. Well, let's get to the last one here. Who do you have if you have a late first? Let's say it's your own first and you're a legit contender. Where are you going?
Yeah, we're maybe a couple days a little bit late, but I don't think the value's changed too much. Okay. But I'm going with Jaylen Waddle for the Miami Dolphins. Now, I think he is a fantastic buy. Obviously would have been a better buy pre that next game that we saw without Tyreek in the lineup. But I do think at 26 years old, you're still going to get, some longevity out of Jaylen Waddle. And I honestly, if I had to tell you today, we've already had some of the rumors of Tyreek Hill is maybe going to be released by this team in the offseason. I don't know if you've seen some of those rumors already, but it feels like Tyreek Hill's era here in Miami is probably done now that the injury has hit. So to me, that means that Jaylen Waddle, here are the keys to the castle. do what you need to do in the wide receiver room, at least for now, temporarily. Whatever you do this season will tell you whether or not you're going to be the long-term number one or we're going to draft a guy. Maybe they do draft a guy, but even when you do draft a rookie, I feel like Jaylen Waddle is going to be the veteran that they lean on. So I'm just looking at where he's being valued on Keep Trade Cut. He is the wide receiver 31. We've seen an increase in his value post-Tyreek injury, but it hasn't been drastic. He's averaged 14.1 fantasy points per game throughout the year so far. But the big thing for me is when you look at his previous games with Tyreek and the game without Tyreek, he jumped from about 6 targets and 50 receiving yards per game in those games with Tyreek Hill to now 9 targets and 110 yards in the game without Tyreek. He is much more involved in the offense. And by the way, that was against a Carolina Panthers defense who has been very good against wide receivers so far this year.
They actually have, yeah.
They've been very good. The rest of the season schedule for Tyreek is very good. 11th easiest amongst wide receivers. And the biggest part for me is he has probably one of the best playoff schedules of all fantasy football wide receivers to end the year. He has the 4th easiest according to fantasy points above expectation, but he gets matchups against the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who we know the Bengals and the Buccaneers, they've just been in shootouts, let everybody score a ton of points.
Yep.
That has been what they've done, and that's your semifinals and your championship week. So if you have Jaylen Waddle, you're a strong contender, you're looking for an extra piece to plug into that lineup, I truly do believe Jaylen Waddle can flirt with these low-end wide receiver 1 numbers the rest of the year, and I would be sending that late first-round pick to him immediately for anybody because I think at this point in time, there's going to be some people that have been holding on to Jaylen Waddle for so long, and he hasn't done enough for them for so long that they're like, I'm good to kind of just re-roll this and get out. Like, finally, here's my opportunity to move Jaylen Waddle. I know I've had him on a couple of rosters, and I was getting to a point where I was like, am I ever going to be able to plug Jaylen Waddle, confidently into my lineup? Probably not. Well, I'm glad I wasn't able to sell him because now it looks really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, your biggest risk there is Tua. Tua is your biggest risk in all of this because we saw what that offense looked like last year when he was not in the offense. And we know he's had a hard time staying healthy over the years. So that's the big thing that you're just crossing your fingers is just stay on the field, Tua. Just stay on the field. And Jaylen Waddle is going to be a great asset. So I think it's a good call. Go ahead.
Do you think Zach Wilson gives you any more confidence than, because we've seen Zach Wilson, be able to get Garrett Wilson at least going a little bit, not, to the extent of his highest ceiling, but we've seen him at least get his guys involved.
No, I don't.
I understand. I understand it. I think just more than like the Tyler Huntleys and the Skylar Thompsons of the world. I'm like, maybe Zach Wilson, Quinn Ewers. Do you want to go Quinn Ewers, baby?
Yeah. I need Tua to stay. Yeah, because I just remember even with Zach Wilson, it's he was fine, but Garrett Wilson had some of his best games with Mike White and Joe Flacco. So
yeah, you're right. You're right. But if Jaylen Waddle is with Tua the whole year, I think we're looking at a good buy. But you're right. That's the risk. The risk is Tua.
Yep, absolutely. Usually it's, something to do with the player this time. I don't think it has anything to do with Waddle. I think it has to do with who is his quarterback. If his quarterback stays healthy, we're in good shape. So let's get to our final one here. And I'm going to go back to the quarterback position. My contender buy for that late first round pick, going Mr. Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, after week 1, if you did not watch the game, you're like, oh man, this isn't going to be a good year. He only gave us, what was it? Of course I messed up my chart, but there it is. 7.8 points per game in his first game. So not a great game, but what have we seen from him since then? We've seen 23.1, 14, 31, 28.3. He has been balling out these past few weeks. And look, he is the number 1 quarterback right now in pass attempts. He is the number 2 quarterback right now in passing yards. This defense is exactly what I thought it was. It's booty butt cheeks. It's dumpster juice. It's dog water, whatever you want to call it. It's bad. Like, it is not a good defense. They're going to be in shootouts every single week. This is similar to what we got out of Joe Burrow last year, where it's just one side of the ball is significantly better than the other side of the ball, and that makes great, sweet music for fantasy football purposes. Now, I know some of you guys are like, well, I don't know that I want to go after Dak Prescott. He's old. Okay, well, here's the thing. Right now, this guy, he's only 32 years old, and I get it. It's much more fun to have a 25-year-old at quarterback. But he's not retiring tomorrow, people. We treat these older quarterbacks, and that's why I mentioned the Kirk Cousins of years gone by. You mentioned Jared Goff. I was totally comfortable for years with Aaron Rodgers. Like
Baker
right now is in the very similar age range. That's the thing. Most of these quarterbacks, if they are truly solid quarterbacks, not the hanging on by the skin on their teeth type guys, but the guys that have been solid, good assets for years, are playing till they're 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. Like, they're playing much, much further into their career. Now, I'm not going to give anybody the Tom Brady treatment and expect them to play till they're 45, but do I think we have easily 3 to 5 years left of Dak Prescott? I do. I genuinely do. And look, I think in Dynasty, we get so caught up on building for the future. It's called Dynasty. I want my future to look good. Okay, look at your team today and then think about your team 3 years ago. It is a drastically different team than what you had 3 years ago. 3 years is an incredibly long time in Dynasty fantasy football. So yes, I get it. He's not the shiny new thing, but here's a guy that preseason we were talking about. I don't know why he's not being ranked as a top 12 guy. He should be. I had him at like 8, I think, to start the season, 7, somewhere in there. And everything we thought about this team, as far as how bad the defense is, how much this team's going to throw the football, all of it has come true. And he's doing it right now without CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb is going to be coming back. That's only going to make his life even easier. So, guys, right now he's being sold. If Dak Prescott is being sold in your league for a single first, I am jumping on that all day. Honestly, I have him as the late guy because that's where his price tag is. If it had to be a mid first, so be it. I will give a mid first to get Dak Prescott on my team. Do I have to give a late first and a second? Cool. Done and done. I think Dak Prescott is one of the most underappreciated assets in super flex leagues, and I don't think it's particularly close.
Yeah, and he has been one of the most underappreciated, undervalued assets for a while now. And like you said, it's similar to the Jared Goff, and it's similar to the other guys that we've talked about, where it's like every year at the end of the season, we look at the final rankings for fantasy football quarterbacks, and we're like, okay, Jared Goff here, Baker Mayfield here, Dak Prescott here, and then like all of the guys we really like in Dynasty, here's Penix down here, here's this guy down here. Like, what do you want? Like, what do you want at the end of the day? Yes, it's Dynasty, and yes, age is a factor. We need to be factoring that in to an extent into these deals and into your roster construction. But I play Dynasty fantasy football for one reason. I want to win championships. I don't want to have the best screenshot to post on X when I, have all the young guys in my lineup to say, hey, look how good my Dynasty team is in June. I want to say, look how good my Dynasty team was at the end of December when I scored 200 points in my fantasy championship game. And now I get to win the money. I get the prize pot. I get to put the championship ring on the shelf or whatever it is that your league does. That's what I play for. I get to tell my league mates, hey, you can refer to me as El Presidente or champion for the rest of the year. Like, that's what you get to refer to me as. So, yes, it's fun to have the young guys. It is more fun to win the championships, and I think Dak Prescott is a player that can help you do that. So I definitely like it. And I think if you're, shopping this late first, you're a contender anyways. Might as well push it over the hump, because the argument of holding that would be like, you could have drafted in the late first a Colston Loveland. You could have drafted a Matthew Golden, an RJ Harvey. Do you want to plug those guys in your lineup right now, or do you want to plug in Dak?
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Dynasty Nerds podcast. If you have not, go to Apple Pods, go to Spotify. Make sure you're giving us those 5 stars, letting us know what you like about the pod. Rich reads each and every one. So if you leave a comment, Rich will, I guarantee he will read it. So make sure you say nice things about him. But say nice things about our new hosts like Andrew and Jagger as well. Let us know what you think of those guys. I've heard nothing but glowing reviews so far. So excited to have these guys here and involved with what we're doing. Make sure if you're listening to us on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. If you're here watching and you're watching 34 minutes, 35 minutes into this episode and you haven't subscribed, why? You clearly like what you hear. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like the video. We appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.